Hi there, my name is Miss Townsend and I love math. Welcome to Math with Townsend. This video is for grade 10 academic students who are working on their summative, and it's actually, hang on, it's part C of question 17. So question 17 had us sketching triangles and then solving them. Now in this question, obviously we don't have to sketch it. The sketch was given to us. So we're just going to have to solve. Now solving a triangle means to find all of the missing sides and all of the missing angles. In this case, none of the sides are missing, so we're only looking for the angles. And the only way to find an angle is, if you know the sides, is if you have to use the cosine law. And it's up to you which one you start with. I'm going to start with little g. So don't forget, that's little g, this is little j, and this one would be n because it's opposite big N, and so on. So if I'm going to find this side first, for no reason, it just happened to be there, then I need to use the following version of the cosine law. So g squared equals j squared plus n squared minus 2j n cosine big G. So make sure you set up cosine law properly. This side that you want, or the side that goes here, must correspond to the angle that you're using over here. The other two variables are the other two sides, okay? So let's substitute in, and then we need to start rearranging because we need to isolate G, which really means isolating cosine G. So 17 squared equals 15 squared plus 16 squared minus 2 times 15 times 16 times cosine G. So again, I'm putting kind of a big square bracket around cosine G because just to remind myself that my first priority is to isolate cosine G. Once I've done that, then I can think about isolating G itself. But for now, cosine and G is a combined package. So let's do a little bit of math and then start to rearrange. So 17 squared is 289, 225, no, yep, whoa, 256 minus, so 2 times 15 times 16 is 480, and again, times cosine G. Okay, so let's now work on isolating. So I have to subtract 225 from both sides. I have to subtract 256 from both sides. And you can certainly do that in your calculator. So let's punch those numbers in and see what we get. So 289 minus 225 minus 256. So I get minus or negative 192 equals negative 480 cosine G. So again, I'm trying to isolate cosine G. So on both sides, we're going to divide by negative 480. And what does that give us? That will give us 0.4. Ooh, that was strange. So 0.4 equals cosine G. And now I need to get rid of cosine. So to get rid of cosine, you do something called inverse cosine. So these two things here cancel each other out. And if you do inverse cosine here, make sure you do inverse cosine here. And that gives me over here, I have G, and the value of G is 66.4 degrees. So I have found one of the angles in my triangle, sorry, not one of the angles, one of the sides in my triangle to be 66.4. And now that I have that, oops, no, I was right. What's an angle? That's 66.4 degrees. I already knew that this was 17 millimeters. So now that I know one angle, I don't have to use cosine law again. Now I can start to use sine law. So for sine law, I can set up sine G over G and work on finding the rest of the values. So here's how I would set it up. Sine G over G equals sine J over little j. And that also equals sine n. Oops, pressed something weird. N over n. And again, you'll notice whenever I set up sine law, the one that I know, when I know both g and g, that's the one that goes in the middle, and that's so that I can do this. Here is the first equation that I'm going to use. Okay, so what do we know? We don't know the value of angle J, but we do know that side J is 15. We just found that angle G is 66.4 degrees. And we know that side G is 17. So this is the math we have to do. So first of all, let's punch into our calculator sine 66.4. What do we get? So again, always make sure your calculator's in degree mode. Not that in grade 10 you've ever had to find another mode, but sometimes calculators get into their own mode just by sitting in your calculator or in your backpack. Okay, so sine 66.4 is 0.9164, and you know to use 4 decimals, of course you do. And now we're going to cross multiply. So 17 times sine j, well that's just 17 times sine j, and 15 times 0.91, etc., is 13.75. Good. So isolating sine j, so I'm going to divide by 17. So then dividing by 17, you get 0.8. Oops, wrong side. Sorry. So we've isolated sine j, and we have this value, 0.8086. So now get rid of sine by doing inverse sine, 0.8086. And that will tell us that angle J has a measure of 53.95, so we'll say 54.0 degrees. Good. Okay, so now we also need to find the value of sine n. And certainly, you know, if you're confident in your math, since it's the third missing angle, you could just use the 180 rule about the sum of the angles in a triangle. But I'm instead going to use that as a check, and I'm going to use the sine law again and calculate it the long way, and then I'll double check that I'm right using the 180 rule. So again, sine g over side g is sine n over side n. So sine of 66.4 right there. And again, we're going to cross multiply. So 17 times n is just 17 times sine n. 16 times 0.9164 is 14.6624. Divide both sides by 17. I get 0.8625. That's the value of sine n. So how do I find n? We do inverse sine. So inverse sine of 0.8625 is the value of n. So in my calculator, second functioning sine, I get 59.59. So I'll say 59.6 degrees equals n. And that's angle n. Oops, I put the angle in the wrong spot. Okay, so do my answers make sense? So I have 59.6, 54, and 66.4. So this is where I said I would do that little last check. So all the angles in a triangle are supposed to add to 180. So I have 66.4, I have 54.0, and I have 59.6. And if they add 180, which they do, then I'm pretty confident in my math. So that's the end of question 17. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, you can post them in the comments. You can see anybody in the math department. There's lots of trigonometric help on the internet as well. So there you go. Happy studying.